Greetings, everyone. We are live from SBC Studio at Summer League 2021. This is No Trade Clause. We're glad to be back with you guys for another installment. In this studio show, we are greeted by, we have the opportunity to interview special guest Seth Partnow. He is an NBA analyst at The Athletic. He was formerly in the front office there for the Milwaukee Bucks, so he brings a wealth of experience to this broadcast. So we are really excited to have Seth's time this afternoon. Seth, thanks so much for joining us. So we hope you've enjoyed the Summer League experience here overall so far. And has anything stood out to you in particular about this year's edition?
It is weird to be back here, at least. You know, we haven't been here since 2019.
Yep.
And it's the same but different, but I'm glad to be back here. And on the court, it's much as I remember it. Everyone's going a little too fast, and that's how you kind of, for the most part, can tell the guys who've been in the league, been in a rotation, are the ones who are playing at a reasonable speed and not going 7,000 miles an hour all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you definitely pick up on that watching a few games here at Summer League. You know, the guys that have been here, they're composed, they're cool, they're collected. And then the guys that are out here for the first time, they're like, oh, wow, this is kind of like a whirlwind, and they're trying to get their setting. So, definitely feel you on that one. So let's jump into the content here, Seth. We have a few questions for
Sure.
you. You have a lot of experience, working for an NBA team, and now you're with the Athletics. So we want to kind of pick your brain on a few topics.
Sure.
So you were previously the director of basketball research for Milwaukee, which I'm sure for a lot of people is kind of like a vague job title. They're not exactly sure what that job entails. So what kind of roles and responsibilities did that job, have for you? Did you specialize in a particular aspect of the sport, or were you a jack of all trades that kind of helped out in all over the team in different departments?
So it's essentially director of analytics, just by another name. Now, that doesn't exactly answer your question at all. But for the most part, an analytics group in an NBA front office is dealing with kind of coaching strategy and player personnel stuff. In some places, there's a more technologist element, and in some places they work directly with kind of the training and sports science staff. Mm-hmm. We did less of that in Milwaukee, so it was mainly focused kind of between the player personnel and the coaching strategy. And though there's not exactly a bright line between the two of those, but those are kind of the two hats generally you're wearing. And so that's everything from trades, drafts, self-scouting, opponent scout, playoff prep, all those kind of things. Player development tracking is becoming a bigger thing as
Sure.
as teams start to maybe follow more of a baseball model in terms of how to make player development an organizational function as much as it is a coaching function. Mm-hmm. And that obviously involves to see progress, you have to get a baseline and kind of see how guys improve and what they're doing and what's working for them and what isn't. So those are kind of the various avenues that kind of an analytics group with an NBA team will work on in this day and age.
Yeah, it's a common theme that we're seeing so far. Talking with Ryan McDonough yesterday, it kind of seemed like he kind of played a part in a lot of different departments as well. Analytics is a huge part of basketball, but analytics kind of reaches into a lot of departments of the sports world, and it's interesting to kind of hear your perspective on that as well. And that's something we hear from a lot of people that are in this industry.
It is a little bit misunderstood in that it's treated as sort of this separate thing, when really done well, it is
just a piece of the puzzle.
It is not a separate thing, but it is a sort of an assistant with information flow and collection and analysis that sort of suffuses through everything you do. Mm-hmm. Done well, that's what it that's how it works. And it's hard to tell from the outside, even by the size of the staff, which teams are using analytics better or not, because it's much more about how well it's integrated throughout that process.
Right.
If it's treated as just kind of a reference material on a shelf, you're not really getting much out of it that you couldn't get by having a cleaning the glass subscription or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But if it's part of the information, intake, process, export, presentation throughout all of your decision making, throughout your reporting to ownership, to all those things, that's where it really can become sort of a multiplier of your other efforts.
Makes sense.
Absolutely. So recently, obviously, the Bucks won an NBA championship after a 50-year drought, and we wanted to ask if you feel any, sort of pride when it comes to the contributions that you've made to the team that led to accomplish its ultimate goal.
For the I don't want. It's been weird because people have tried to like congratulate me for it, and there are players that were there that in some way I probably had a part of the decision to acquire them, but I don't want to take credit away from the folks that mostly I'm just happy for. I still have a lot of friends in the organization, and I'm mostly just happy for those folks. Mm-hmm. Happy for I still live in Milwaukee, so I'm happy with the people of Milwaukee who really kind of embrace the team. And as you guys saw, if you saw the the images coming out of the Deer District there, it was kind of a big deal.
It was.
So I live about 8 miles away from the stadium, and I don't know if I imagined it or not, but I felt like I could hear like the Deer District going crazy.
I was going to say, if you could hear it or not.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was just in my head, but it seemed like I could.
Yeah. That's tight.
That's so cool. We wanted to kind of we were just wondering about that since you were there for a while, and even though you weren't there actively participating when they won that championship, it's possible you kind of maybe laid the groundwork for some of those decisions that were made.
The one thing the fact that I was banging the drum, Drew Hawley's really good for.
I saw that on Twitter. It's like you need to understand this.
Yeah, but that's that's something that I don't want to talk too much about what we did internally, but that was something that I was definitely like, whether that played a role in actually making that trade or not. That Seth liked him, but that's definitely something that came up a lot when we over those times. So, but again, that it's just it's almost happenstance that the perfect player for them, who was available at the right time, happened to be the guy that I was There's all kinds of guys you like and don't like throughout the league, sure. And the universe of possible trades is sort of much smaller than, hey, I like that guy, because between the salary cap mechanics and what teams are, where teams are in their sort of life cycle, guys are more or less available, and right. So that it just kind of broke that way, and as it turned out, he was the perfect guy for them, and as it also turned out, the perfect guy for Team USA also.
Exactly. So you heard it here first from Seth, guys. He was beating that drum before everybody jumped on the bandwagon.
That's exactly not what I'm saying. Thank you.
So keeping in theme,
don't aggregate me.
Of course. So keeping in theme with the Milwaukee Bucks, this is a team that it seemed like they kind of broke the mold, so to speak, when it came to the roster construction, their style of play. We're used to seeing teams just, absolutely just go up with tons of threes per game, and, they're trying to kind of flow into this new age movement of pace and space and three-pointers as much as they can get. Milwaukee kind of went to a blueprint of gritty, tough play, playing two bigs, Bobby Portis, Brook Lopez, something a little bit different. So, what kind of stood out to you about the way they constructed this team and their game plan from night to night? It seemed like it was a little bit different from what we'd expect to see from a team at the highest level.
So it's a little bit of both, though. I mean, they did shoot a bunch of threes, and part of the reason why they brought Brook Lopez in originally is, okay, he can protect the rim, and he's started shooting threes now, so he can space the floor, because we have one of the, at the time not we anymore, had one of the great sort of paint dominating offensive forces in NBA history. Mm-hmm. So obviously you want your center out of the way of that, and so having a guy who can, in 5 or 10 years ago, it's like the guys, that's Serge Ibaka, the guy who can protect the rim and space out the floor. And now there's a few more players who can do it. As it turns out, this is an area where there was a little bit of luck involved. We thought Brook would be a good interior defensive presence in the scheme we wanted to play. Mm-hmm. Turned out he was much better than that, which was building a team always involves a little bit of luck. And so, sure. If people had realized he was going to be as good as he has been for the Bucks, he wouldn't have been available on biannual exception. Right. So, but at the same time, the defensive, the size and sort of rebounding and interior toughness that you're talking about, that's the flip side of that, is you have the bigs who can stretch out, but then also, protect the rim, rebound. Brook is not a great individual rebounder, but his teams always rebound well on the floor because he does a very good job of kind of clearing everyone out and other people come in and grab the board. So, But more than that, I think there's a tendency to say there's only one style that can win. Well, the Warriors did it this way. Well, the Warriors had players to do that. The Warriors switched everything because you've got Andre Iguodala and Draymond Green and Harrison Barnes or Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson. That's a great switchable lineup. And then like Steph is an underrated kind of both battler, but also an off-ball defender in terms of playing passing lanes and stuff like that. So that's a very good group to execute that kind of scheme. There's other teams that's like, oh, switching is the only thing. Well, if you have different personnel, switching doesn't make sense. If your pick and roll defense is Drew Holiday and Brook Lopez, maybe more of a center field or drop where you have one of the best guys at getting over screens in Holiday and one of the best guys in kind of giving space but also contesting shots in Brook Lopez in the back. So it makes, with that, especially with that group on the floor, that's a scheme that makes more sense for you, who you have.
Absolutely.
And, the playoffs have become such a, calling it a chess match is cliche, but it's really the willingness to try different things by teams has become so much that you can't just have one thing. That's how we do.
Absolutely.
You have to be adaptable.
Maybe you're good enough that we're gonna throw our fastball and but there's only one Mariano Rivera who know what's coming and you still can't do anything with it.
Right.
For the most part, the top teams are close enough that you have to try stuff and adjust and their counter to your counter to their and you have to have those extra cards to play.
Right.
So I think we get lost in like this one thing works when it's a combination of different things
It really is.
work throughout a game, throughout a series, because each game builds on the last as well.
Yeah.
Great point.
Absolutely. Yeah. To touch on that really quickly, like I feel like with Rudy Gobert and them playing drop, and a lot of people just kind of said, hey, teams can't play drop, or because of what they saw, and that was kind of like a confirmation bias. And
Okay, but that's not Rudy Gobert.
That's the point. Because they didn't have the resources on the perimeter.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So this is an interesting thing. It's almost like, so you're saying Rudy Gobert is bad because he's so good that you can have an elite playoff defense with your two forwards being Joe Ingles and Bojan Bogdanovic.
Yeah.
We're very good players, very good offensive players.
For sure.
Yep.
Smart positional defenders, overmatched as athletes against playoff competition.
Yep.
But you're saying that Rudy Gobert is so good that he covers that up. It's his fault.
Yeah.
That's a very weird kind of.
Makes no sense.
The dynamic, the conversation about that, it just bothers me. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up that point. So
Well, no, that's that's one of those things you can like pull the string and wind me
sure.
up and let me go. And
I'm
it's like,
the
I can
same
see
way.
the look in your eye. You're on
I'm the
this
same
lineup.
way.
It's like, I'm ready to go. Let's get into it.
I'm the same way. So there are probably several prominent differences between being a key member of an NBA organization and now, you're a member of the media outlet called The Athletic. What have you found to be the biggest adjustment you've made in a way that you gather information and also produce content as well?
I miss my second spectrum.
I bet.
So and even if you can get some of the public stuff, like the level of detail you have internally is just.
It's on
The
another
public,
level.
the public stuff, and even the stuff that's on their dashboard is, it puts you in the right direction. But there's the level of detail you can get into with like the real stuff is so, and so it's hard because there's a few times where it's like, no, trust me, I know this. I can't show you because I don't have the data to show you anymore. But this is something that I know to be true because I've tested it before. So that's sort of a weird spot to be. And then that's also like, is that verging on like talking about something proprietary or anything like that? The flip side is the conversation is just more open. One of almost, I don't want to say the frustrations, but something I wasn't totally expecting going to work for a team is almost how isolated the research is. Like there's 30 teams and they're probably like duplicating research on the same problems a lot. Whereas if, you put 5 of us in a room, and we could all figure it out in 20 minutes with, people bringing different things. But you don't have that, ability to sharpen ideas off of other people because they're your competitors.
Right.
And so actually I have those conversations much more with people in the league now than I did now that I'm an outside observer rather than a competitor.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot with people we talk to that shift roles from a team to media. It's like that freedom is there for them post being in the organization, just because like you touched on, you can interact with people from all teams and all different areas instead of just for one team or one department or something like that.
And the other thing I'd say is that there is far more time to just kind of explore stuff in the media than there is. The amount of stuff you have to get through is more than the available hours in a day on the team side. So there isn't necessarily room to, I don't know if this is a thing, let me look at it. Because it has to work.
Right.
Like you like during the season, you don't have time to, I'm going to sink 20 hours into this project just to see if it's something.
Yeah.
Like if it doesn't turn out to be something that's like actionable or useful, that's 20 minutes, that's 20 hours you're not getting back.
Right.
Exactly.
And so you're not really under that pressure in the public side because, that was interesting. I don't know if it led to anything, but this was interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Is sort of more of a useful place to end up in sort of the public area than it is where you're very focused on like the competitive advantage piece.
For sure, for sure. And speaking of freedom, you've had the opportunity recently to work on a book dropping in November called The Midrange Theory. And, I had someone on my podcast recently, Miran Fader, she authored a book about Giannis. So just seeing the opportunity for you guys in media to be able to just go, you're talking about having the opportunity to just go down these rabbit trails and explore different ideas. I'm sure that kind of culminated in the research for this book. So, what message or themes are you really trying to communicate through this book, and how difficult was that to do?
How difficult? I mean, it was the NBA schedule made it unexpectedly difficult. When I kind of signed the book deal, we knew it was going to come out this fall. We were sort of under the impression that the season was going to start January or February. So I was like, I got November, December to get myself really going on this, and then it's like, nope, we're starting now.
Yeah.
So doing both at the same time was a challenge, but both my day job and writing the book at the same time was a challenge.
Sure.
And then what was the sorry, what was the other?
We were just wondering what kind of themes or ideas you're trying to communicate through this book.
So hopefully there's a lot of misconceptions about what analytics, and I don't really like the term analytics. It's so loaded. It's just basketball. We're talking about basketball so we're talking about it from a numerical standpoint, but those numbers represent the same thing as you see as you're watching a game. And so trying to demystify that a little bit, make it more palatable, more relatable to people who see the thing as numbers. It's like, this is a different thing. No, it's basketball. You're looking at it at a different scale. You watch a game, you're watching one game. You're coming at it like statistically numerical. You're watching all the games at once, not at the same level of detail, but at a level where you can kind of put what you're seeing on the court in context. Okay, this player hit 4 of 9 threes. If you didn't know anything about basketball, is that good? That's a simple one. But a guy shoots 44% from three. We know that's great because we know what we have the context of what everyone else around the league shoots. With the increases in technology and player tracking and things of that nature, we have the context for so many more basketball events.
Yes.
And that's really what it is. Like, we're this guy performed well in this situation in a pick and roll. That's something you can watch. But before, you couldn't really compare, how does Damian Lillard play against drop coverage versus Steph Curry versus James Harden versus they all do very well.
Right.
But now you can actually go back and look not just one game, but every game this season, every game for the last 8 seasons.
How good is that relative to similar players, similar situations?
How is a player developed in that area? You can start to see those things, and that's in a lot of ways, a lot of what analytics is, you can describe it as fancy counting.
That's a good way to put it.
But that's very powerful because we weren't able to do that before, and it really ends up confirming a lot of what you think you already knew about basketball, and then the areas where it's like, no, that's a good theory you have, but actually in practice it doesn't play out that way. And so those are kind of some of the interesting ones. Like I think the classic example for me is there's the long shots lead to long rebounds, lead to fast breaks.
Yes.
That's that makes sense as a theory. And long shots do lead to, it's physics, right?
Yeah.
The ball is moving faster, it hits the rim, it comes off faster,
farther.
it goes farther.
Yep.
That's true. What does not happen then is that does not, on a rate basis, that does not mean that more fast breaks happen after that. They happen sometimes, and those times stick out in people's minds.
Right.
But for various reasons, you shoot a three-pointer, something good has happened on offense. You're probably in good floor balance. If it came from the top of the key, someone's already back. So as it turns out, you don't actually fast break as much off of missed threes as you do off of missed layups, for example.
True.
That's not something you can theorize your way to. That's an empirical question, and that's now we have the tools to be able to see that.
Yep.
So that's it wasn't that people were wrong to think that before. It turned out to not be the case.
Right.
And so those are some of the that's a simple example, but those are some of the kind of the insights and kind of new things about the game we can learn.
Definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. I know we touched on this with a little bit with the previous questions, but are there any misconceptions you've seen from the general fan base on NBA Twitter or other outlets that you think that should be addressed, and what ideas do you think should bring to the conversation that could improve the way that we discuss analytics in general?
I know this is prime time for you, Seth. I'm sure you got 1,000 ideas.
There's mean answers and there's kind answers. So the kind answer is just to reiterate, it's just basketball.
Yeah.
It's not trivia. It is not the baseball example. He in the seventh inning of doubleheaders on Tuesdays, he hits blah blah. That's not useful. Mm-hmm. But seeing how players perform in situations, putting the context around what has happened in the game, being able to see how a player has improved over time with some degree of objectivity. Those are useful things, and it's nothing different than we're doing. It's just we're using slightly different tools to do it.
For sure.
Absolutely.
That's a great answer, Seth. I'm glad that you brought some clarity to that, and hopefully NBA Twitter can be a better place if we start to kind of understand these things a little bit better, or kind of communicate these things a little bit better.
Also, one more.
Sure.
This is the mean answer is
Please go.
is analytics people watch a lot of games.
Absolutely.
You must not watch basketball. No, because to figure out if what you're doing actually makes sense, you do have to go back. It's wait, is that actually happening, or is this just something that showed up?
I feel like a lot of your theories, hypotheses, and just possible projects start from the fact that, oh wow, I spotted something in the game.
Yep.
Boom. Let me dive into that.
Yep. That's absolutely right. You watch enough NBA basketball, you know how things are supposed to look.
Yeah.
Yep.
Something looks different. It's that looked different. How often does that happen, and what does it mean?
Yep.
That's the start of so many research projects.
Absolutely.
And contrary to what you guys might think, Seth is not against your favorite team. If you see a stat that goes against your favorite team, he's not a hater. He's just doing his job. He's just trying to make the game a little bit easier to understand. So that brings us to the close of another broadcast. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning into our conversation, and hope you enjoyed the content. We appreciate Seth for joining us. His takes and his thoughts process on these things are very much appreciated. Be sure to check out his book, The Midrange Theory. It's coming out here in November. So until next time, guys, enjoy the rest of Summer League, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Take care.